Brandon Sanderson, people. Come on. He's overrated. Definitely. I'm going to give you some hot takes on that one. I don't even want to get into it yet, but we're getting into it in this episode.
And for what it's worth, I'm going to make my dad mad. This is
Bring
Fantasy
it.
for the Ages, the show where a father and son sit down and talk about fantasy books. I'm the son of the equation, Zach.
And I'm the father, Jim. Thanks for being with us here today as we just get into some fun discussion on books that we all love, enjoy, and are passionate about. But maybe we don't love them as much as some of you do. And that's what we're talking about here today. Our 10 most overrated fantasy and science fiction books. To be clear, the books we're sharing with you today are not bad books. They're not books that we didn't like. In fact, well, I don't know. I don't know everything Zach has.
Yeah, I had to check. At least one of mine's actually a bad book.
But these are books definitely a lot of people like. And we're going to come and say maybe too many people like them or they like them too much. They're not quite as good as people seem to think they are. We've created a list, each of us separately, we haven't talked yet, of our top 5, the 5 books that we think are the most overrated. Again, we're not saying these are bad books. If you love these books, fantastic. Now, if you think they're not overrated, come at us. Let us know why. What's your thought? Because we have reasons, but this is our show. This is our opinions, and we're going to give it to you here today. Zach, would you like to go first?
Sure, I'll give a nice softball. Something that I think at this point, this day and age, most people, at least most people that I would take seriously, agree this is a bad book. It is a bad series.
Ooh.
But so many people have gone crazy over it and its movie franchise, and it doesn't make sense. It is entirely overrated. This is Twilight. It's not good. It's not worth its hype. Why did everyone go crazy?
They
Why
all
are
went
still
psycho
their
for a while.
diehard fans? It doesn't make sense.
I know. I don't get it either. Wow. We're not going to argue about this one.
No,
That's for sure.
this is why it was easy. It was first. We agree.
And we are, starting with our ones that we think are the lowest of the overblown ones, So this is Zach's easy one. Most of you watching this are probably going, yeah, this isn't controversial. Really, Zach? That's all you got? No, he's got better.
Not
He's got
controversial,
better.
so I could piss my dad off at the end.
I tried reading the Twilight books. I didn't get past the first one. I'm like, why? What's going on? I also tried watching the movies, and I got up to the last one. I've never watched the last one. I probably shouldn't have gone that far, but completionist.
I read them. I watched them. It's where kind of my stance of before I say that I don't like something, I should experience it, read it, watch it. This is where it came from, and I kind of regret reading it. It's not good.
If you are a Twilight fan, fantastic. Love what you love, but I don't get it how the world seemed to collectively lose its mind for a little while with those books. I'm wondering if the newest phase thing, this Fourth Wing, that was big in 2023, and now I think it's Iron and Blood is the sequel.
Iron Flame is the sequel.
Iron Flame? Is that it?
Yeah.
I was thinking I might try Fourth Wing because so many people are, oh, it's so great. But no, I'm hearing from so many other people. It's basically the new Twilight. I don't think I'm not sure now anymore.
I'm initially going from what I know, you wouldn't like it. That being said, I reserve judgment. I haven't read it yet.
I have had a few people say they've read Fourth Wing and it was okay, but the sequel's horrible. Like all the things that were the stuff you just had to suffer through in the first book are what they expand on in the second book. And okay. Anyways, that was your first one. We do have a system in place here where if we duplicate anything, we have some backups that we'll throw in, but that will mess up our order potentially. And we may throw in something that now is our new number one that really isn't number one. But so far, so good. I didn't have Twilight on here. I'm bringing to you, going back to my initial take from Brandon Sanderson, that in general, Brandon Sanderson stuff is overrated. But the one I'm going to bring as my most significantly overrated is the Stormlight Archive. Now, his magnum opus, they're saying it's the best he's put out there. There's a lot in it. I've read all 4 of the books, and I've read the novellas that go with. I have enjoyed them, but none of Brandon Sanderson's writing is as great as people want to say. There's so much better out there. It's like pulp fantasy for the masses. It's entertaining. The Stormlight Archive's a little deeper than some of the other stuff, and therefore people go, "Oh, so it's so good." No, it's so good for Brandon Sanderson. Okay, his lid is just not as magnificent as many other fantasy authors out there. However, it's maybe more accessible and more people read it because they don't have to think as hard.
I'm going to bring a contentious to that point of going, I love the Stormlight Archive. I can agree that Brandon Sanderson, to an extent, the Cosmere, might be a little overhyped. I don't think the Stormlight Archive is because I just love it. That being said, I see your point. It's not as beautiful prose as some books and things. It's not written for that. That's not the point. And I don't think judging a book saying it has to be writing that you have to think to be able to get through makes it a good book.
I'm not making that statement either. But there are things that Brandon Sanderson does in his writings, and it's on display in the Stormlight Archive, where he's just taking easy ways out on things. He throws in world building that's creative and unique, and no, you just made this crap up. It doesn't make sense. And he does that all the time, and we go, oh, he's a master. No, he's just telling a story that if you go deep enough into it, you're going to find all sorts of holes because he didn't think it all through. He's writing too fast to think it all through in some cases. He's most driven by putting out an engaging story that people will find entertaining, and to that extent, he succeeds. But a lot of it's a little bit weak, which is why I'm saying if you're going, oh, he's the best fantasy writer out there these days, and the Stormlight Archive is the bomb, overrated. Okay, that's overrated.
And while I won't go that far, the beauty of this episode is that I definitely am not going as negative as you seem to be.
I'm just speaking the truth, people. Again, I've read almost everything Brandon Sanderson has in the Cosmere. I've read a few things outside the Cosmere too, so I'm still giving him my money. I'm not a hater on Sanderson, but this is about overhyped, and I think he's 100% in that definition. What do you have as your next one?
My next one, I'm actually going to go back a bit. I don't think this is overhyped anymore, but I think it and what it represents.
Wait, you're the young guy and you're going to old stuff?
Yeah.
You're stealing my role, dude. What? Okay, go on.
This and its genre, what it kind of symbolizes as a whole, was overhyped. I don't understand the appeal of why so many people love this kind of book and this character in particular. This is Conan the Barbarian. I don't get it. Sure, it's a classic thing. It's tropey. It's what it is. But I don't understand the huge nostalgic appeal of this barbarian character alone against the world and doing it. And I don't think that lane is as good as some people really love. Some people, as we go to more modern fantasy, go, man, where are those good old days? Where's Conan? And I'm like, in the ground where he belongs.
He's hanging out with Gore out, in the whorehouse somewhere.
He had his time. Let him pass. Let him be. We don't need new bad movies trying to revitalize Conan the Barbarian.
Ah, wow. Okay, overhyped. Yeah, I don't know that anybody these days is really out there lifting up, but you're saying maybe back in the day it was hyped up as so good and it was never as good as they say. Is that what you're trying to go with?
The same people who do overhype Conan and talk about the good old days of fantasy are the same people who talk about the good old days of D&D who like first edition and don't think the game has gotten better. It's gatekeepy. It's not fun. Come on, be inclusive.
All right. I never spent a lot of time in Conan books. That really wasn't my thing. I did find some comics that actually were pretty good. Conan the Barbarian comics, because some of that stuff, bringing it to the panels and seeing the stuff laid out there, the world, and as a teenager, seeing the women that way. Okay, yeah, it had an appeal at a time. I've definitely outgrown that. All right, my next one. This falls into the category of something I've tried because everybody loves it. Okay, again, everybody's an over exaggeration. Terry Pratchett's Discworld. People rave about this. It's just amazing. It's so fun. I've tried to read 3 different times. So I've read 3 complete novels in the Discworld series, and none of them have done it for me. I don't get it. Now, part of it, I've got Discworld people coming at me going, "Well, you're reading the wrong Discworld books." I'm like, "Oh, come on. How can we say a series is so great if it's, well, only some of the books are great. The others, what?" And you know me, I like to read things in publication order. So the 3 I've read were the first 3 that he's written in the world. And they're basically telling me his over 40 books in Discworld series that, yeah, it took him some time to figure out how to write them well. Okay. But what I hear the primary massive appeal of Discworld is the approach to humor and the way it's satirically poking at elements of our world, at politics, at society, at culture. And I haven't got to any of that to the degree that makes sense to me in the first 3 books. Those have plenty of humor. Not my kind of humor, though. Doesn't do it. So I find Discworld overhyped.
I want you to remember every single word that you just said about that series. Because I can't bring it up immediately, but it'll be coming back. Not that series, but every argument you just made.
All right, all right. Oh, I know what series you're gonna pull in here. No, I'm not shocked you're gonna go with that, but I'm already gonna say you're wrong. But go ahead. What's your number 3?
You know what? Just because it's not where it would be, I think it's higher just because you overhyped this series.
Your
But I have to bring it up now. We've hinted at it. The Dresden Files.
You're so wrong.
It is so overhyped. Don't get me wrong. It's enjoyable. It's fine. But everything that you just said about Discworld, oh, it takes a few books. He was still figuring out how he was writing. Oh, it gets better and bigger. Oh, it's the humor and the poking fun at things. This gets better through it. I'm like 9 out of 17 books in, and I don't see it.
You're 10.
I'm 10 out of 17 books in, and I don't really see it. Like, I'm enjoying it okay. It's fine. They're not bad, most of them.
Well,
but how can you say this is one of the best series that exists if not all of them are good?
Well, again, for me, all of them were good.
So
different style and preference.
I'm just saying, everything you said about Discworld applies to the Dresden Files from my perspective. And for me, it's not even that everyone overhypes this. It is touted as one of the best urban fantasy things, and maybe urban fantasy just really isn't my genre, and that's okay. But you in particular, for at least a year, have been hyping this to me so much in every book, going, oh, it gets better. Just wait till you get to this. Just wait till. And I'm gonna read them. I'm enjoying them well enough, but it's not worth the hype that you're giving it.
That's the energy I have to put into it to get you to read them, I guess.
No, yeah, I committed to read them a year ago.
I'm glad you specified, though, because I would agree that the fandom in general out there doesn't care about the Dresden Files to the degree that I have enjoyed them.
You care about the Dresden Files.
Maybe they're the most overhyped by me. Okay, you have something to stand on there, maybe. Yeah, I still think they're fantastic. But that's what we're here for, people. Our different opinions. Okay, so now that Zach had his moment to be wrong, let me go to one that you'll all think I'm wrong on, too. Although, I don't know if Zach's even read this one. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I have read this one, and you're wrong.
Oh, no, it's so overhyped. I read it. I'd heard about it for so long, and I read it before we started this channel. I'm like, okay, now I get some of the inside jokes, but it wasn't that great a book. It was like, well, okay, now I can say I've read it. I will never reread it. It didn't entertain me that much. It wasn't bad, but I don't get why people so rave about this book. Whatever.
I think it's enjoyable. It's a breath of fresh air in a way, very different than anything else. That being said, it made me excited about Douglas Adams, and I went and read some other things that I didn't really like anything else by Douglas Adams.
That doesn't speak well for this book.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Loved it. Anything else by Douglas Adams? No, don't read it. Don't bother. It's not worth it.
And thanks for the fish. Okay, what do you have for number 2?
My number 2 overrated, in a way, is in our background right now. Because it is anything by Stephen King. Any and everything by Stephen King is overrated, in my opinion. He is fine as an author. He does things. Granted, I haven't read The Dark Tower. I've read some things here and there, a couple of horror things by him, and it's fine. Sometimes even you could say it's good. Movie and show adaptations don't usually do justice to the books, and that's fair. The problem I have here is Stephen King is one of those names that everyone recognizes, whether you read that genre or not. Stephen King is the kind of author where people put it on their shelf and then go, yeah, no, I haven't read it, but it's on there. And he's toted around as one of the like great authors of our generation, being a big family name who's
100%.
super prolific. And it's not that good. It's fine. It's good.
Wow,
It's
that's
not
a hot take.
that good. If I have to compare, I'm like, okay, names that everyone knows. Tolkien. Stephen King. I don't think they're on the same level.
You're right. Stephen King's way better.
I disagree. And you can make arguments that you really enjoy Stephen King, but I don't think it's crazy to say he's not as good as the universe would seem to want us to believe. Not everything he writes is gold.
My response on that tends to be, I think, what your measuring stick is. And I don't really think Stephen King is better than Tolkien at writing fantasy. Okay, let's be clear on that. But what Tolkien excels at is storytelling, and the way he can bring just regular life and blood type people to life on the page. He does an amazing job, regardless of what focus his story is, whether it's horror, suspense, fantasy, it doesn't matter. He can write the phone book and make it interesting. And that's why he's so successful as an author. But
I'm not here to say that Stephen King is a bad author. I'm here to say he's overhyped, and a lot of his success is probably due to a lot of people and things picking up his works for adaptations, keeping him a family name, and the success of his publishing company. That his books get out there.
Possibly. I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on this one, but we knew we would. All right, my number 2 should be of no shock to anybody. The Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe. So hyped. So people just think this is one of the masterpieces of science fiction / fantasy. And I read it and hated it. I could only appreciate it as a quality piece of literature. Yes, it's well written in some ways, but I want those days back, those weeks back, because it's huge. And people legitimately are out there say die hard that, well, you have to reread it because there's so many layers hidden under it that you just can't appreciate it until you reread it. I'm like, I'm all for books that get better when you reread them, but they got to be good the first time too, and this one wasn't.
I don't know if I agree with your level of overhypedness, maybe with your disdain for this book. I do intend to read it eventually, but beyond your experience with these books, I've really heard like 2 people ever talk about them. Now, the 2 people who talk about them say they're the best books ever.
Now, because I've read them and spoke about them a lot, I've had a lot more people talk to me. But what I hear consistently is, yeah, we don't tend to talk about these to other people because people just don't get it. They don't understand the book. So when they say, oh, I love this book, everyone else is like, really? What? So there's a niche for the Book of the New Sun that hypes it amongst themselves. I think it's amazing, and this whole podcast about this series and how incredible it is, and that's overhyped. Again, just our opinion. We're not saying these are bad books. We just think too much hype. But you're saying you don't hear enough about it, so you don't think
I don't hear a lot because I haven't actively entered into that circle, so I don't think it's necessarily overhyped. Maybe it's because people know they'll get backlash for that hype, and therefore they don't hype it as much until you're willing to give it a shot. And so who knows? I have read a little by the author before, enjoyed it, but it does seem to be a bit dense. So we'll
Oh,
see
yes.
how that actually goes.
That's dense. Yep, that would fit what I've read with of Wolf. Yeah. All right, what's the we haven't overlapped at all yet.
Not yet. I
What's your
tried not to overlap. I really did. I tried to pick
what,
things I knew you liked.
what's your top one? What do you got up here?
My number one overhyped sci-fi fantasy is something that I think was overhyped, is overhyped, and will continue to be overhyped.
I think I know what you're gonna say too.
Dune.
Yep. I knew what you were gonna say.
It's fine. I found myself getting bored regularly while reading it. Like, I would go, this is good. I know this is good. I'm not engaged like I should be. And I didn't feel myself drawn to read anything past the first book because it didn't feel really worth it. I know the general story beyond there, and I think it's cool, but I don't know if it's worth everything it's been given. The accolades, the praise, the adaptations. I was happy to see the first part adaptation when it came out more recently, and I'm going to be excited for the next one. But I don't need a Dune franchise of movies. Give me the 1 and 2, adapt that first book, call it good. I don't need a Dune cinematic universe.
Dune gets a lot of hype. I've read all of the Dune books. I believe it's worthy, but I get when some people struggle with the first book. It's a style that is not modern. It can be hard for people to get into. I think it maybe always was kind of hard to get into. Many people will agree that the first book is not the best book of the series. The second and third collectively may be the best books of the series. I'm not saying Dune is a bad book. It's just the style of it, the way it's written. Yes, you can hit boring times. You might feel that way. It's laying a lot of foundation that's going to be built on in the future. That's done sometimes. But if it's not
And
your
I'm
thing,
not
it's
even
not your thing.
saying it's bad or that it's boring in totality, just that it takes long enough and wandering enough to build and do what it's doing that it doesn't grip me and engage me enough that I don't think it's worth the hype
You may
it's
not
gotten.
like Dune for the same reason. Not like is perhaps the wrong term, but you may feel it's overhyped, not worth the praise for the same reason you think the Dresden Files is overhyped. Because it doesn't start off grabbing you right away. It's like, it's kind of boring. I don't get some of this. What's the point?
I don't know if that's a fair comparison considering I'm 10 books into one and one in the other.
So you're saying the Dresden Files is better for you than Dune was?
No, I'm saying the Dresden Files is a way easier read than Dune.
I tried, man. I tried. Okay, my number one, The Broken Earth Trilogy by N.K. Jemisin.
That was my honorable mention.
Yeah. Man, okay, wins the Hugo 3 years in a row.
And I think that's worthy. I do think
No,
it's good and unique.
the first one came out with a certain approach, a new style. It was fresh. It was something different, and it wins the Hugo. No problem. That the next two books also get Hugos, I have no idea why. They did nothing else. There was nothing to really take it to new levels to make it just. I mean, were the other books that year nominated? Did they all suck? So that
I
we just have to do the same person, the same trilogy 3 years in a row? I don't get it.
I think the third is better than the first, which is why I'm like, I understand the first and the third. The second, no, I'll give you, it probably was a weak year.
Now, I did enjoy the third better than the first, and I've got other content out here, but most people feel the other way around. The first is their favorite. The first was my least favorite, but you need the first to make the second and third make any sense at all. But I think they get way too much hype. They're not all that. They're fine. If you love those books, fantastic. But I think you go 5 years from now, we're not even going to be talking about them anymore.
I think they
I think they're
are
going to keep fading into the background.
I think they are good. I think they are unique, but I think the reason that they really get hype, while important, has little to nothing to do with the book. I think the reason they get hype is because we think they're good and unique by a female author, by a person of color, and that's really good. And we like to put that forward because for too long it's been a white male dominated genre. But is that a valid reason to, in perpetuity, lift a series to such a lofty area?
Now, I think that does sell a little short. I mean, that's a factor. Agreed. But the books bring something of their own. They're not just resting and getting a claim because it's a female author of
Yeah.
color.
Sorry,
No.
I did not mean to imply that that is the only reason. I'm implying
Okay.
this is where it is by itself. High, good, valid, but it gets boosted up and, in your opinion, overhyped as much as it is due to those factors.
I won't argue that is an element in play. Absolutely. So I read them only because they are so hyped. And when I read them, I'm like, nah, they're not worth what everyone was saying. And they're certainly not worth 3 Hugo Awards. I have a recent episode out about my top 10 Hugo Awards, and these 3 are down on the list lower. Lower, and wouldn't have made the top 10 if I'd read more of the Hugo Award winners. Because no. Okay. Those are our top 10. Now, we had some others just in reserve that we might have said were overhyped. We're not going to talk about them because we didn't have any conflict, but I wouldn't mind us listing what were the other ones we might have said something.
Oh, I just
So,
put one extra and you used it right at the end. It would have been my bottom of my overhyped, but I agree, it is a little overhyped.
okay. Well, I have 4 just in case. I'm not going to say a thing about them, but I'm
You
going to
really
tell you
thought I
the
was going to
ones.
take 4 of yours?
You never know.
You thought I
You
was
never
going to
know.
agree that much?
The 4 other books, or a couple of series actually, that we could have talked about because there's a case to be made that they're overhyped. The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss.
I couldn't include it because I haven't read it yet.
The Dark Tower series by Stephen King.
I
which
did
you
include
also
it.
haven't read yet. The Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling.
That felt like too much of a softball, just like Twilight.
And The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Not the Lord of the Rings, but The Hobbit.
I'm going to go a step further to say I overhyped that book, and I'm aware of it, but that one gets the nostalgia factor for me.
There you go. Oh, this has been fun. Great conversation to have with you, Zach. Thanks for being here with me, and this was entertaining. If you all have enjoyed it as well, again, don't forget to click like and subscribe if you haven't. We'd love to have you with us. We also have other ways you can interact with us that are all down in the show notes. Our Discord server, our social media presence, even an email. You can send us an email. We answer emails. We rarely get emails, but we do get plenty of comments on social media. So we'd love to interact. Zach, you up to anything good today?
I'm just chilling at home taking care of a hurt doggo. I don't think I've talked about it on podcast, but we think Broly's got a slip disc, so my whole setup, my whole everything has changed to accommodate him, so he's just sleeping next to me a little bit.
But people, isn't Zach's background much cooler right now? It's very interesting.
You'd think it's a little less cool if you saw my computer propped up on a piano bench and me sitting on a kitchen stool.
I thought I was picturing a milk crate, but a kitchen stool is maybe
it's a little
better.
step stool kind of thing.
What we won't do for pets, right? Rolly, your child basically right now. We're gonna show.
There he is, just sleeping in there, slumped.
Oh, there. It was kind of
he's
showing
dark.
his shadow mostly at
He
first.
blends in.
I can see it now. I can see him now. Okay. We wish Rolly the best. And I didn't ask. You probably aren't. You weren't drinking anything today, were you?
Just coffee. It's still morning. Well,
Yeah,
it was.
Me too. Just coffee. It is still morning by you.
Still,
Not
for a
late
little
yet.
bit.
All right. Well, I think that's where we'll wrap then. Oh, I should mention though, again, thank you to everybody who's recently joined us on YouTube. As of this moment, we're up to 769 subscribers.
Woo!
We're reaching to 1,000. We're gonna get there. And we our Patreon supporters are also growing. So we do have a Patreon. If you're still here at this point listening, check out our Patreon, and you can find even more content that's only available for patrons on Patreon. There are other benefits as well. Thank you to everyone who supports us. Got anything else to say, Zach?
I don't think so.
Well, that's when we'll wrap it. Again, if you had opinions about ours, let us know. Put them in the comments. Thanks for watching. talk to you next time.